Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on this video. Before we start, I need you to understand something. What you're about to hear is real. The footage I'm describing is real. The people who disappeared were real. And for 36 years, the United States government kept this tape locked away where nobody could see it. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to know why. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And if you're in Virginia, if you've ever hiked the Blue Ridge Parkway, pay attention, because what happened to my brother could happen to anyone. My name is Michael Gump. I'm 52 years old. In 1987, my brother Michael was 23. He was a senior at Virginia Tech, studying film. He wanted to be a documentary filmmaker, wanted to tell stories that mattered, stories that revealed truth. In October of 1987, Michael and 4 of his classmates drove into the Blue Ridge Mountains to make a documentary about Bigfoot. They thought it would be funny, ironic. A bunch of film school intellectuals making fun of hillbilly superstitions. They were going to interview locals, capture some spooky footage of the woods, and edit it all together into a satirical piece about American folklore. They never came back. For 36 years, I've been trying to find out what happened to my brother. For 36 years, I've been hitting walls, dead ends, classified documents, people who refuse to talk. Last year, I finally got answers, and now I'm going to share them with you. This is the story of the Blue Ridge tape. And this is what really happened to Michael Gump and his friends in October 1987. Michael was my older brother by 7 years. Growing up, he was my hero. Smart, funny, creative. He could make anything interesting. Could find a story in the most mundane situations. When he got into Virginia Tech's film program, our whole family celebrated. He was going to be somebody, going to make movies that changed how people saw the world. His senior year, he had to complete a thesis project. A short documentary on a subject of his choosing. Most students picked safe topics, local businesses, community events, historical landmarks. Michael wanted something different, something that would stand out. He chose Bigfoot, not because he believed in it. Michael was a skeptic, a rationalist. He thought the whole Bigfoot phenomenon was a perfect example of how people create myths to explain things they don't understand. He wanted to deconstruct it, show the psychology behind the belief, interview the true believers and gently expose the holes in their stories. His advisor loved the idea, said it was fresh, provocative, the kind of thing that could get attention at film festivals. Michael assembled his crew and started planning. There were 5 of them total. Michael was the director and primary cameraman. His best friend, David Park, handled sound. Jennifer Morrison was the interviewer and on-camera talent. Kevin Walsh did lighting and secondary camera work. And Amy Thornton was the production assistant, handling everything else. They were all seniors, all talented, all excited about the project. None of them had any idea what they were getting into. The plan was simple. They would spend a week in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The first few days would be interviews with locals who claimed to have seen Bigfoot. Then they'd do some atmospheric shots in the forest. Finally, they'd stage a fake Bigfoot sighting for comedic effect and film each other's reactions. It was supposed to be fun, a lark, a way to end their college careers with something memorable. On October 15, 1987, they loaded their equipment into David's van and drove west from Blacksburg toward the Blue Ridge Parkway. Michael called me that morning before they left. I was 16, a junior in high school. He told me about the project, laughed about how they were going to expose the Bigfoot industrial complex, said he'd bring me back a souvenir, maybe a plaster cast of a fake footprint. That was the last time I heard his voice. The first 2 days went according to plan. I know this because of the footage that survived, the footage that the government kept hidden for 36 years. Day 1 shows them arriving at their campsite, a clearing about 5 miles off the Blue Ridge Parkway, accessible only by a dirt road that the locals used for hunting. The footage is typical 1987 video quality, a little grainy, colors slightly off, but clear enough to see everything. Michael is behind the camera for most of it. You hear his voice giving directions, setting up shots, making jokes. At one point, he pans across the mountains and says, "Look at this, God's country. And somewhere out there, Bigfoot is waiting for us." Everyone laughs. They think it's hilarious. They set up their tents, built a fire, cooked dinner. Standard camping stuff. The footage from that first night is peaceful, almost boring. 5 friends sitting around a fire talking about their futures. Jennifer wanted to work in television news. David was thinking about graduate school. Kevin had a job lined up at a production company in Richmond. Amy wasn't sure yet. Michael said he wanted to make documentaries that mattered. Said he wanted to find stories that nobody else was telling. He found one, just not the way he expected. Day 2 was interview day. They drove to a small town called Floyd, about 30 miles from their campsite. Michael had arranged to meet with several locals who had reported Bigfoot sightings over the years. The plan was to interview them, capture their stories, and then subtly undermine their credibility through editing. The first interview was with a man named Earl Patterson, 73 years old, retired farmer. He claimed to have seen a Bigfoot in 1962 while hunting deer in the mountains above his property. The footage shows Earl sitting on his porch, Jennifer asking questions off camera, Michael handling the main camera while Kevin operated a backup. Earl tells his story simply, without embellishment. He was tracking a buck through the forest when he heard something moving in the brush. Turned around, saw a creature standing maybe 50 yards away, 8 feet tall, covered in brown hair, walking upright like a man, but clearly not a man. Earl says he raised his rifle, not to shoot, just to look through the scope, to get a better view. When he lowered the rifle, the creature was gone, vanished into the forest without a sound. Jennifer asks if he was scared. Earl thinks about it. Says he wasn't scared exactly, more like awed. Like he'd seen something sacred, something that wasn't meant for human eyes. You can hear Michael whisper something to David off camera, something about perfect material for the skeptic montage. They thought Earl was just a confused old man. A nice story, but nothing credible. The second interview was different. Her name was Martha Whitmore. 61 years old, schoolteacher. She lived alone in a cabin about 10 miles from Floyd. Michael had found her through a newspaper article about local folklore. She'd been quoted as an expert on mountain legends. The footage shows them arriving at her cabin. Martha greeting them warmly, inviting them inside for tea. She's small, gray-haired, grandmotherly, not the kind of person you'd expect to have disturbing stories. But she did. Martha didn't claim to have seen Bigfoot herself. What she had were stories, passed down through generations of mountain families, stories that went back to the earliest European settlers in the region, stories about things in the forest that weren't animals and weren't human. She called them the Watchers. On the tape, you can see Michael's expression change as Martha talks. He starts out amused, condescending, waiting for the punchline. But as she continues, something shifts. He starts taking her seriously. Martha tells them that the Watchers have always been in these mountains. The Cherokee knew about them, called them by names that white people couldn't pronounce. When the settlers came, the Cherokee warned them. Stay out of certain valleys. Don't camp near certain rock formations. Don't make too much noise in the deep forest. The settlers didn't listen. Of course they didn't. Martha says people started disappearing. Not many, just 1 or 2 a year. Hunters who went into the mountains and never came back. Travelers who took the wrong trail. Children who wandered too far from home. The bodies were never found. The disappearances were blamed on bears, on getting lost, on the 100 natural dangers of wilderness life. But the mountain people knew better. They learned the boundaries, learned which places to avoid, and for generations they coexisted with whatever was in those forests. An uneasy peace, a mutual understanding. Martha looks directly at the camera, at Michael, and she says something that I've watched 100 times, something that still makes my blood run cold. She says, "The old boundaries are fading. People don't remember anymore. They go where they shouldn't go. They see things they shouldn't see, and the watchers are getting bolder. They're not content to wait for people to stumble into their territory anymore. They're coming to the edges, looking at us, studying us, like they're getting ready for something." Jennifer asks what they're getting ready for. Martha doesn't answer, just shakes her head, says some questions shouldn't be asked. Michael thanks her for her time. They pack up their equipment and leave. In the van, you can hear them discussing the interview. Kevin thinks Martha is crazy. David says she's just a lonely old woman who's watched too many horror movies. Jennifer is quiet, doesn't offer an opinion. Michael says something interesting. He says, "What if she's not crazy? What if there is something in these mountains? Something that's been here longer than we have?" David laughs, says Michael is getting too into his subject, says they should stick to the plan, make the satire, get their degrees, move on with their lives. Michael agrees, says David is right, says he's just letting the atmosphere get to him. But you can hear something in his voice. Doubt, curiosity, the beginning of belief. They drove back to their campsite as the sun was setting. The footage from that evening shows them cooking dinner, reviewing the day's material, planning the next day's shoots. Everything normal, everything according to plan. But at 11:47 p.m., something changed. The camera was set up on a tripod, pointed at the fire. They'd left it running to capture ambient footage. Firelight, forest sounds, the kind of atmospheric material they could use in editing. At 11:47, the audio changes. The normal forest sounds, the crickets and owls and rustling leaves, they stop. Just stop. Complete silence. Then you hear something else. Movement in the trees. Heavy footsteps. Branches breaking. Kevin wakes up first. You see him sit up in his sleeping bag, look toward the darkness beyond the firelight. He says, "Did you guys hear that?" The others wake up, grab flashlights, scan the tree line. For about 30 seconds, nothing. Just the beams of their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The silence pressing in around them. Then Jennifer screams. The camera is stationary, pointed at the fire, so you can't see what she's looking at. But you can hear her, the terror in her voice. And you can see the others' reactions, the way they all turn toward the same direction, the way their faces go pale in the firelight. Michael runs to the camera, grabs it, points it toward the tree line. And for just a moment, maybe 2 seconds of footage, you see it. A shape at the edge of the light. Massive, at least 8 feet tall, bipedal, covered in dark hair. It's standing maybe 30 yards away just outside the reach of the firelight, watching them. Completely still. Then the footage goes dark, the camera was knocked over, you hear shouting. Chaos, running footsteps, screams. When the footage resumes maybe 10 minutes later, the 5 of them are huddled by the fire. The creature is gone, but they're terrified, shaking, trying to understand what they just saw. Kevin wants to leave immediately, wants to pack up and drive back to civilization. Michael refuses. He says they captured something incredible, something that could change everything. He wants to stay, wants to get more footage, wants to prove that what they saw was real. They argue, it gets heated. Finally, they compromise. They'll stay one more day, try to get more footage. But if anything else happens, they leave immediately. Watching that tape, knowing what I know now, I want to scream at them. I want to reach through the screen and drag them out of those mountains. But I can't. I can only watch and wait for what comes next. The next morning, October 17th, 1987, they made a decision that would cost them their lives. They decided to go looking for the creature. Michael reasoned that it had been watching them. That meant it was curious. Maybe they could find its territory, get better footage, capture evidence that would make their documentary into something historic. The others weren't sure. Jennifer especially seemed reluctant, but Michael was persuasive. He always was. And the lure of the story, the possibility of being the ones who finally proved Bigfoot existed, was too strong to resist. They packed their equipment and headed into the forest. Away from the road, away from the campsite, deeper into the Blue Ridge Mountains than any of them had ever been. The footage from that day is hard to watch. Knowing what's coming, knowing that every step they take is leading them closer to something they won't survive. But I've watched it anyway, hundreds of times, looking for clues, looking for answers, looking for any sign of what happened to my brother. The forest gets denser as they go, the sunlight fading, the silence growing heavier. At one point, Michael stops and points at something on a tree. Claw marks, deep gouges in the bark, at least 8 feet off the ground. Something's been marking its territory, he says into the camera. We must be getting close. They keep going, keep walking into the darkness, keep moving toward whatever was waiting for them. And somewhere in those mountains, they found it. Or it found them. The footage from after that point is fragmented, chaotic. The camera was dropped multiple times. The audio is distorted by screaming and running. But you can piece together what happened. And it's worse than anything I imagined during those 36 years of not knowing. My brother walked into those mountains looking for a story. He found one. The last story he would ever tell. And for 36 years, the government kept it hidden, kept the truth buried, kept the families of the victims wondering what happened to the people they loved. I'm going to tell you that truth now, all of it, every terrible detail. Because Michael deserved better than silence, because they all deserved better than to be forgotten. This is the Blue Ridge tape. This is what happened in October 1987, and this is why you should never go looking for things that don't want to be found. The footage from October 17th, 1987, picks up around 2 p.m. Michael and his crew had been hiking for about 4 hours. They were deep in the mountains now, miles from their campsite, miles from the road, miles from any chance of help. The camera was rolling almost constantly. Michael wanted to capture everything. Every sound, every shadow, every piece of evidence that might prove what they'd seen the night before. He was obsessed. You can hear it in his voice. The excitement, the certainty that he was on the verge of something historic. The forest at that point was old growth, massive trees that had been standing for centuries. The canopy was so thick that almost no sunlight reached the ground. Everything was dim, shadowy, the kind of place where you could walk past something 10 feet away and never see it. Around 2:30, they found the first structure. It was built between 2 trees, branches woven together into a rough shelter. Maybe 8 feet tall and 6 feet wide, too large for a human to have made. Too deliberate to be natural. Michael circled it with the camera, captured every detail. The way the branches were interlocked, the bedding of leaves and moss inside, the markings scratched into one of the support trees. 3 parallel lines, repeated over and over. David said it looked like something an animal would make, a den of some kind. Jennifer disagreed. She said animals don't make marks like that, don't scratch symbols into trees. Whatever built this shelter was intelligent, capable of abstract thought. Michael was thrilled. He said this was exactly what they needed. Physical evidence. Something that couldn't be dismissed as a hoax or a hallucination. He wanted to stay, set up cameras, wait for whatever had built the structure to return. Amy spoke up for the first time in a while. She said they should leave. Said something felt wrong. Said the forest was too quiet, too still, like everything else in the woods was hiding. Kevin agreed. Said they'd gotten enough footage. They could come back with more people, better equipment. A real expedition instead of 5 college kids with consumer video cameras. Michael argued, said this was their chance, their moment, said they might never find this place again. They were still arguing when they heard the first call. It came from somewhere to the north. A vocalization unlike anything any of them had ever heard. Not quite a howl, not quite a scream, something in between, low and resonant, like it was coming from a massive chest. Then another call answered from the east, and another from the west. 3 distinct sources, all calling to each other, all surrounding the group's position. The footage shows their faces in that moment. The argument forgotten. The excitement replaced by fear. They weren't hunters anymore, they were being hunted. Michael made a decision. He said they should head back to camp. Quickly but calmly. Not running. Running would trigger a chase response. They would walk, stay together, and get back to the van. They started moving south, back the way they'd come. The camera was still rolling. Michael refused to turn it off. Said if anything happened, there needed to be a record. Proof of what they'd encountered. For about 20 minutes, nothing happened. They walked through the dim forest, jumping at every sound, scanning the trees for movement. The vocalizations had stopped. The forest was silent again. Maybe they were overreacting. Maybe everything was fine. Then Kevin disappeared. It happened so fast that it took them a moment to realize. 1 second he was walking at the back of the group, carrying the backup camera. The next, he was gone. No scream, no struggle, just gone. They called his name, shined their flashlights into the trees. Nothing. Kevin was simply not there anymore. The footage from the next few minutes is chaotic. Shaking camera, panicked voices, Jennifer crying, David shouting for Kevin over and over, Michael trying to keep them together, trying to figure out what happened. Then they found Kevin's camera, just lying on the ground, still recording, but no Kevin, no sign of where he'd gone, no blood, no tracks, like he'd been plucked off the earth by an invisible hand. Michael picked up the camera, checked the footage. The last few seconds showed Kevin walking along behind the group, then a shadow passing over the lens, and then nothing. The camera falling to the ground, pointing at leaves and dirt. A shadow. That's all the warning Kevin got. A shadow from above. They realized then what was happening. The creatures weren't beside them in the forest, they were above them, in the canopy, moving through the treetops with a silence that shouldn't have been possible for something so large. Jennifer wanted to run. Amy was in shock. David kept calling Kevin's name, unable to accept that he was gone. Michael made another decision. He said they had to keep moving, had to get to open ground where the creatures couldn't attack from above. The road was maybe 3 miles south. If they could reach the road, they might have a chance. They started running, all pretense of calm abandoned. Just pure survival instinct driving them through the forest. The camera footage from this point is almost unwatchable. Blurry, shaking. Glimpses of trees and sky and terrified faces. But you can hear everything. The heavy breathing, the crashing footsteps, the branches breaking overhead as something tracked them through the canopy. They ran for maybe 10 minutes, then they burst into a clearing. An open space where a fire or storm had cleared the trees years ago. No canopy, nothing overhead. For a moment they felt safe. They were wrong. There were 3 of them standing at the far edge of the clearing. The footage is shaky, but you can see them clearly enough. 8 feet tall, maybe taller, covered in dark, reddish-brown hair. Faces that were almost human, but stretched wrong, eyes that reflected the light like an animal's. They stood perfectly still, watching, waiting. David raised his hands, shouted that they meant no harm, that they were leaving, that they wouldn't come back. One of the creatures tilted its head, like a dog hearing a strange sound, like it was curious about this small thing that was making noise at it. Then it moved. The footage shows it crossing the clearing in maybe 3 seconds, covering 30 yards faster than any human could sprint. David didn't even have time to turn around. One moment, he was standing there with his hands raised. The next, the creature had him, lifted him off the ground like he weighed nothing. Jennifer and Amy ran. The footage shows them fleeing into the trees on the opposite side of the clearing. Shows Michael hesitating for just a moment, the camera still recording, capturing David's face in that final instant. I've watched that moment so many times. David's expression, the shock, the disbelief, the beginning of a scream that was cut off when the creature pulled him toward the forest edge. Then Michael ran too. The footage is pure chaos after that. Running, falling, getting up, running again. Jennifer's voice somewhere ahead, screaming Michael's name. Amy's sobs from somewhere to the left. They didn't stop until they couldn't run anymore, until their lungs were burning and their legs were giving out. They collapsed in a hollow between 2 ridges, a natural depression in the earth that gave them some cover. 3 of them left. Michael, Jennifer, and Amy. Kevin and David gone, taken by something that they'd come here to mock, something they'd thought was a joke. The footage from the hollow is quieter. The camera set down on a rock, pointed at the 3 survivors. They're huddled together, crying, shaking, trying to understand what happened. Michael says they need to keep moving, says they're still miles from the road, says the creatures will find them if they stay in one place. Jennifer says she can't. Says her ankle is twisted from the running, says she can barely walk. Amy hasn't said anything since David was taken. She's just staring at nothing, eyes empty, mind somewhere else. Michael looks at the camera, speaks directly to it. And what he says is something I've carried with me for 36 years. He says, "If anyone finds this tape, we were Virginia Tech students. Michael Gump, David Park, Jennifer Morrison, Kevin Walsh, Amy Thornton. We came here to make a documentary. We found something real, something that's been in these mountains for a long time. Tell our families we love them. Tell them we're sorry. And tell the world that they're out there. They're real. And they're not what people think they are." He pauses, looks into the lens like he's looking at me, at his little sister who he called before he left, who he promised to bring a souvenir. He says, "Skylar, if you see this, I'm sorry I'm not coming home. I love you. I've always loved you. You're going to do amazing things. Don't let this stop you. Don't let anything stop you." Then he picks up the camera and says they have to move. The footage from the next hour shows them struggling through the forest. Jennifer leaning on Michael. Amy stumbling along behind them. The light fading as the sun set. The shadows getting deeper. They were lost. Couldn't find the trail. Couldn't figure out which direction was south. The forest all looked the same. Every tree, every rock, every hill. Around 5 p.m., the vocalizations started again. That same sound from before. Multiple sources, circling them, getting closer. Michael found a rock formation, a outcropping that created a shallow cave. Not much, but it was defensible. They could put their backs to the rock, could see anything approaching from the front. They crawled inside, set up the camera on a ledge, and they waited. The footage from that night is the most disturbing thing I've ever seen. Worse than any horror movie, because horror movies aren't real. This was real. This was my brother and his friends waiting to die. The sound started around 7 p.m. Movement in the forest. Heavy footsteps. Breathing. The creatures were out there, surrounding the rock formation. But they weren't attacking, not yet. Jennifer asked why they were waiting, why they didn't just finish it. Michael said he didn't know. Maybe they were curious. Maybe they were playing with their food, or maybe they wanted something, were waiting for something. Around 9 p.m., one of them appeared at the edge of the camera's field of view, just standing there, maybe 20 feet from the rock formation, watching them with those reflective eyes. Jennifer screamed. Amy didn't react at all. Michael told them to be quiet, told them not to make sudden movements. The creature watched them for maybe 5 minutes. Then it did something unexpected. It sat down, just sat on the ground, cross-legged almost like a human would. And it kept watching them, studying them, its head moving slightly, taking in every detail. Michael whispered that he thought it was intelligent. Really intelligent. Not just an animal, something more. Something that was trying to understand them the same way they'd been trying to understand it. He asked if they should try to communicate, make peaceful gestures, show they weren't a threat. Jennifer said no, said they should stay still, stay quiet, wait for it to leave. The creature stayed for almost an hour, just watching. Sometimes it would make small sounds, clicks and grunts that almost seemed like language, like it was talking to itself, or to them. Then, around 10 p.m., it stood up, looked at them one more time, and walked away into the darkness. They didn't sleep. How could they? The creatures came and went all night. Sometimes one, sometimes several, always watching. Never attacking, testing them, evaluating them. By morning, they were broken, exhausted, terrified beyond rational thought. The footage from October 18th shows them emerging from the rock formation at first light. The forest is quiet. The creatures are gone, or at least out of sight. Michael says they have to try again, have to find the road. They can't survive another night out here. They start walking. South, they think, toward where the road should be. The camera rolls, records everything. The endless trees, the exhausted faces, the stumbling steps of people who are running on nothing but fear. Around 10 a.m., Amy stopped. She just stopped walking. Stood in the middle of a clearing and refused to move. Jennifer begged her to keep going, said they were close, said they could make it. Amy said something that the microphone barely picked up. She said, "They're not going to let us leave, don't you understand? We saw them, we filmed them, they're never going to let us leave." Then she walked toward the tree line. Michael tried to grab her, tried to pull her back, but she shoved him away, kept walking, towards the shadows between the trees where something was waiting. The footage shows her disappear into the forest. Shows Michael and Jennifer screaming her name, calling for her to come back. She didn't come back, and now there were two. Two of them left. Michael and Jennifer, alone in a forest that had already taken 3 of their friends, surrounded by creatures that had spent the night watching them like specimens in a jar. The footage from the morning of October 18th shows them moving through the trees in silence. No more talking, no more planning. Just walking, putting one foot in front of the other, trying to find a way out of the nightmare they'd walked into. Jennifer was limping badly now. Her twisted ankle had swollen overnight. Every step was agony. She leaned on Michael, slowing them down, but he refused to leave her. Around noon, they found a stream, fresh water. They hadn't had anything to drink since the previous morning. They knelt by the water, cupping it in their hands, drinking until their stomachs hurt. That's when Jennifer finally broke down. She sat by the stream and cried, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. Michael sat next to her, held her, let her cry. The camera was propped against a rock, recording everything. When she could finally speak, Jennifer said something that I've thought about every day since I first saw this footage. She said, "We came here to make fun of people. People like Earl Patterson, people like Martha Whitmore. We thought we were so smart, so educated. We thought anyone who believed in these things was stupid, just dumb hillbillies with their dumb superstitions." She wiped her face, looked at the forest around them. "But they knew," she said. "They've always known. They learned to live with it, to respect it, and we came in with our cameras and our smirks, thinking we were going to expose them as fools. We were the fools. We're dying because we were too arrogant to listen." Michael didn't argue, just held her, because she was right. They'd come to these mountains as tourists, as outsiders who thought they knew better than the people who'd lived here for generations. And now they were paying for that arrogance. They rested by the stream for about an hour. Then Michael said they had to keep moving. The road had to be somewhere. They just had to keep going until they found it. They walked for the rest of the afternoon. The footage shows the forest gradually changing, the trees getting smaller, more light filtering through the canopy, signs that they were approaching the edge of the deep wilderness. Around 4 p.m., they saw something that made them both cry with relief. A trail marker, a small wooden post with a yellow blaze painted on it, part of the Blue Ridge Trail system. They were back on mapped territory, back in the world of humans and roads and safety. Jennifer hugged Michael, said they were going to make it, said the road had to be close now. They followed the trail. The markers led them downhill toward a valley where the trees thinned out. With every step, hope grew. They were going to survive. They were going to get out. The trail led to a clearing, and in that clearing they found something that stopped them cold. It was a circle of stones, large rocks, waist-high, arranged in a perfect ring about 30 feet across. The ground inside the circle was bare. No grass, no leaves, just dark earth that looked like it had been burned. And in the center of the circle, there was a pile of bones, human bones. The footage shows Michael walking slowly toward the circle, the camera recording every detail. Skulls, rib cages, femurs and spines, and the small bones of hands and feet. Dozens of people, maybe more. All their remains gathered in this one place. "Oh, God," Jennifer whispered. "Oh, God, oh, God, oh, God." Michael kept filming. Even now, even faced with this horror, he kept documenting. His voice was steady as he described what he was seeing. A mass grave, a collection site, a place where the creatures brought the bodies of their victims. He walked around the circle, noted that some of the bones were old, decades old, maybe centuries. This had been happening for a long time, longer than any of them could have imagined. Near the edge of the bone pile, he found something else, a wallet, leather, cracked and weathered but still intact. He picked it up, opened it. Inside was an ID card, a driver's license. The name on it was Harold Jensen. Born 1932. The license was issued in 1964. 23 years ago. Harold Jensen. I looked him up later. He disappeared in October 1964 while hunting in the Blue Ridge Mountains. His body was never found. The case went cold after a few weeks. Just another missing person in a region that had too many of them. Michael put the wallet back, said they needed to leave, said being near this place was dangerous, but they didn't get the chance to leave. They came from the trees, all at once, from every direction, more than Michael and Jennifer had seen before. Not 3, not 5, at least a dozen, emerging from the forest like shadows coming to life. Jennifer screamed, tried to run, but her ankle gave out immediately. She fell hard, couldn't get back up. Michael didn't run. He stood there with the camera, facing the creatures, recording everything. Even at the end, even when he must have known there was no escape. One of the creatures walked toward him, slowly, deliberately. The largest one, the leader, maybe. It stopped maybe 10 feet away, looked at him, looked at the camera, then it did something that nobody who's seen this footage can explain. It spoke, not clearly, not in English, but sounds that had structure, meaning, sounds that were clearly an attempt at communication, words, maybe, in a language that predated human civilization. Michael responded, said he didn't understand, said they didn't mean any harm, said they just wanted to leave. The creature made more sounds, gestured toward the bone circle, toward Jennifer, toward Michael himself, like it was explaining something, delivering a verdict. Then it turned and walked back towards the others. For a moment, nothing happened. Michael stood frozen. Jennifer sobbed on the ground. The creatures waited. Then 2 of them moved. Not toward Michael, toward Jennifer. She screamed as they grabbed her, screamed Michael's name, begged him to help her. Michael ran toward her. The footage shakes violently. You see glimpses of reaching arms, clutching hands. Jennifer's face as she was pulled away from him. One of the creatures stepped between Michael and Jennifer, blocked him, pushed him back. Not violently, almost gently, like a parent keeping a child away from something dangerous. Jennifer's screams grew fainter. She was being carried into the forest, away from the clearing, away from Michael. He tried to follow. The creature blocked him again, made that vocalization sound, almost like no, almost like a word. Michael fell to his knees. The camera dropped to the ground, still recording. You can see his legs, his hands pounding the dirt, hear his sobs. Jennifer's screams stopped, just stopped. One moment she was crying for help, the next silence. Michael stayed on the ground for a long time. The footage shows the sun moving across the sky, hours passing. The creatures left. One by one, they walked back into the forest, until Michael was alone. When he finally moved, it was almost dark. He picked up the camera, turned it toward his face. His eyes were empty, hollowed out. The face of someone who'd lost everything. He spoke directly into the lens. His final testimony. It's October 18th, 1987. Jennifer is gone. They took her. They took all of them, Kevin, David, Amy, Jennifer. I'm the only one left, and I don't think that's going to last much longer. He paused, looked at the forest around him. I don't know why they let me live this long. Maybe they want a witness. Maybe they want someone to tell the story. Or maybe they're just not done with me yet. He laughed, a broken, hollow sound. We came here to make a documentary about Bigfoot. A comedy, a satire. We were going to show how gullible people are. How easily they believe in impossible things. He shook his head. The impossible is real. It's been real all along. The people we mocked, they were right, and we were wrong. We were so wrong. He turned the camera to show the clearing. The stone circle. The bones. This is what's really in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Not a mystery, not a myth. A population of something that's been here for thousands of years. Something intelligent, something dangerous, something that protects its territory and collects the people who trespass. He turned the camera back to himself. I'm going to try to make it out. I'm going to follow the trail and try to find the road. But I don't think I'm going to make it. They're out there, watching. They let me go once. I don't think they'll do it again. He took a deep breath. If anyone finds this tape, you need to know the truth. They're real. All of it is real. And they're not just in these mountains. People have seen them everywhere, in every wilderness in America, maybe in the world. We're not alone on this planet. We never were. We just convinced ourselves we were because the alternative was too frightening to accept. He looked into the camera one more time. My name is Michael Gump. I'm a senior at Virginia Tech. I came here to make a film. Instead, I found out what's really hiding in the dark. He swallowed hard. Tell my family I love them. Tell Skylar I'm sorry I won't be there to see her graduate, to see her get married, to see all the amazing things she's going to do. He smiled, sad and tired and defeated, but still a smile. Don't mourn me too long, little sister. I went out doing what I loved, chasing a story, finding the truth. Even if the truth killed me, at least I found it. He looked at the darkening forest. I have to go now. I have to try. Whatever happens next, this tape will survive. This truth will survive. Even if I don't. He stood up. The camera angle shifted as he secured it in his bag. This is Michael Gump, signing off, October 18th, 1987, Blue Ridge Mountains, Virginia. The footage continues for another 47 minutes. Just audio, mostly. The camera was in his bag, recording sound as he walked through the darkening forest. You hear his footsteps, his breathing, the sounds of the forest around him. Around minute 32, you hear the vocalization start again. Multiple sources, surrounding him. Michael says quietly, "Here they come." The footsteps get faster, running. You hear him crashing through brush, hear his ragged breathing. Then you hear something else, movement around him. Heavy footsteps matching his pace, staying with him. At minute 44, Michael stops running. You hear him breathing hard, then you hear him laugh. He says, all right, I get it. No more running. Let's end this." You hear movement, something approaching. Michael says, "I just have one question. One question before you do whatever you're going to do." Silence. Then, those vocalization sounds. The creatures responding. Michael says, "Why? Why do you do this? Why take us? What do you need from us?" More vocalizations, longer this time, more complex, like an answer to his question. Michael is quiet for a moment. Then he says, "I think I understand." The footage ends at minute 47. No more sounds. No more voices. Just silence. The camera was found 3 days later by a hiker who saw Michael's bag caught in some brush near the Blue Ridge Parkway. The hiker turned it over to the Park Service. The Park Service contacted Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech contacted the families, and then the government showed up. 3 days after my brother disappeared, men in suits came to our house. I was 16 years old. My parents were destroyed. We'd already heard that Michael was missing, that his whole crew was missing, that a search was underway but they hadn't found anything. Then these men showed up, 2 of them. They didn't identify themselves, didn't show badges or credentials, just said they were from the government and they needed to talk to us about Michael. They told my parents that the search had been called off, that Michael and his friends had been declared missing, presumed dead, that their bodies would likely never be recovered. The official story was that they'd gotten lost in the mountains and succumbed to the elements. My mother asked about the tape. She knew Michael had taken cameras with him, knew there might be footage that could explain what happened. The men said the tape had been recovered, but that it was classified. National security concerns. They couldn't elaborate. They couldn't let us see it. They could only tell us that it contained sensitive information that the public couldn't be allowed to access. Sensitive information. My brother's last words, his last moments, his final testimony, and we weren't allowed to see it, because of national security. My father demanded answers, demanded to know what was on that tape, what had really happened to his son. The men said they couldn't discuss it, said my father should accept the official explanation and move on, said pursuing the matter further would only cause problems. For us, for the other families. I'll never forget the way they looked at us. Cold, clinical, like we were a problem to be managed, not a family that had just lost someone they loved. They left some paperwork, non-disclosure agreements, said we had to sign them as a condition of receiving Michael's death benefits, said if we talked to the press, if we made accusations, if we tried to access the classified footage, there would be consequences. My parents signed. What choice did they have? They were devastated, broken. They just wanted it to be over. But I didn't forget, and I didn't stop asking questions. Over the next 36 years, I dedicated my life to finding out what really happened to my brother. I became a journalist, specialized in investigative reporting, learned how to file FOIA requests, how to navigate the bureaucracy, how to find information that people wanted to keep hidden. For 36 years, I hit nothing but walls. The tape was classified at a level that required special clearances to even acknowledge its existence. The official investigation files were sealed. The Park Service records from 1987 had been heavily redacted. Even the missing persons reports had information blacked out. Every avenue I pursued led to the same place. A door that wouldn't open. A file that couldn't be accessed. A source who suddenly stopped returning calls. Someone very high up had decided that the truth about the Blue Ridge tape would never come out, and for 3.5 decades, they succeeded. Then, in 2023, something changed. I got a call from a man who said his name was Richard. He said he'd worked for one of the agencies involved in the 1987 investigation. Said he was dying of cancer and wanted to clear his conscience before he went. Richard told me things that I'd suspected but could never prove. He confirmed that the tape existed. Confirmed that it showed exactly what I thought it showed. Confirmed that the government had known about the creatures in the Blue Ridge Mountains for decades, since at least the 1950s, probably longer. He said they called them subterranean hominids, a population of undiscovered primates living in the wilderness areas of the eastern United States. Intelligent, territorial, dangerous. The government had been covering up their existence since the Eisenhower administration. The Blue Ridge tape was just one of many pieces of evidence they'd collected and classified. There were others. Photographs, audio recordings, testimonies from survivors. All of it locked away. All of it hidden from the public. Richard said he could get me the tape. Said he still had contacts who owed him favors. Said he wanted the truth to come out before he died. 3 weeks later, a package arrived at my door. Inside was a VHS cassette, old, worn, with a label that said BRT 1087 classified. I watched it that night, alone in my living room. and I finally saw what happened to my brother. Everything I've told you in this video, everything about the documentary and the interviews and the creatures and the deaths, I got from that tape. I've watched it hundreds of times now, memorized every frame, heard my brother's voice so many times that I can recite his final words from memory. But I didn't just watch it. I made copies, dozens of copies, stored them in different locations, made sure that no matter what happened to me, the tape would survive. Because I knew that releasing this footage would have consequences. The people who'd kept it hidden for 36 years weren't going to be happy that their secret was finally coming out. A month after I received the tape, someone broke into my apartment. Nothing was taken, nothing obvious anyway, but I could tell someone had been through my things, searching for something. 2 weeks later, I started noticing cars following me. The same makes and models. Different drivers, but the same careful distance. The same patient surveillance. Then I started getting phone calls, anonymous voices telling me to let it go, to stop pursuing the story, to think about my family, my career, my safety. I didn't stop. After 36 years of fighting for the truth, I wasn't going to give up because some anonymous voices tried to scare me. I contacted news organizations, major networks, national newspapers, told them what I had, what I could prove. Most of them didn't respond. The ones who did said they couldn't verify the footage, said it could be an elaborate hoax, said they couldn't risk their credibility on a Bigfoot video, no matter how compelling it seemed. That's when I decided to release it myself. No gatekeepers. No editorial approval, just the raw truth, straight to the public. This video you're watching right now is the result. Everything I've described, everything I've explained, comes from the Blue Ridge tape. The footage is real. The deaths are real. My brother and his friends really died in those mountains in October 1987. I can't show you the original footage directly. Not yet. There are legal complications, rights issues, things I'm still working through, but I can tell you what's on it. I can describe every frame, every word, every terrible moment, and I can tell you what it means. It means that the Bigfoot phenomenon is real, not everywhere, not every sighting, but the core of it. Something is living in the wilderness areas of America. Something large and intelligent and dangerous. Something that has been here for a very long time. The government knows, has known for decades, and they've deliberately hidden the truth because they're afraid of what would happen if the public found out. Think about it. What would happen if people knew there were dangerous predators in the national forests? In the parks where families hike and camp every summer? The panic, the lawsuits, the demand for action against creatures that can't be killed, can't be contained, can't be controlled. It's easier to cover it up, to classify the evidence, to call witnesses crazy or lying or mistaken, to maintain the illusion that we're safe in the woods, that we're at the top of the food chain, that nothing is out there waiting for us. But something is out there. The Blue Ridge tape proves it. My brother's death proves it. And the deaths of hundreds, maybe thousands of people who've disappeared in the wilderness over the years prove it too. I know some of you won't believe me. We'll say the tape must be faked. We'll say I'm making this up for attention or money or some other reason. I understand it's a hard truth to accept. I wouldn't believe it either if I hadn't spent 36 years investigating it. If I hadn't seen the footage with my own eyes. If I hadn't heard my brother's final words. But I also know that some of you will believe. Because you've seen things, heard things, experienced things that you couldn't explain. Things that made you question what's really out there in the dark places of the world. For you, this video is validation. Confirmation that you're not crazy, that what you saw was real, that you were right to be afraid. And for everyone, believers and skeptics alike, this video is a warning. The Blue Ridge Mountains are not safe. The Great Smoky Mountains are not safe. The Appalachian wilderness is not safe. The creatures that killed my brother are still out there, still watching, still waiting for the next group of hikers or campers or curious explorers who wander too far from the trails. If you go into those mountains, go prepared. Go in groups. Don't ignore the warnings of the locals. Don't go looking for things that don't want to be found. And if you hear something in the forest, if you see shapes moving in the trees, if you feel that primal terror that tells you something is watching, don't document it. Don't investigate. Don't try to be brave. Just run. Run, and don't stop until you're back in civilization, back where the light reaches, back where the creatures can't follow. That's what my brother should have done, what he would have done if he'd known what was really out there. But he didn't know. None of them knew. They thought they were smart, educated, too sophisticated to believe in monsters. The monsters didn't care what they believed. The monsters just did what monsters do. My brother Michael was 23 years old when he died. He was brilliant, creative, full of potential that would never be realized. He wanted to make documentaries that changed how people saw the world. In a way, I guess he succeeded. Just not how he imagined. The Blue Ridge Tape is his final documentary, his final story. And now, 36 years after he made it, the world is finally going to see the truth. Michael, if you can hear me somehow, if some part of you still exists in whatever comes after, I want you to know that I never stopped fighting. Never stopped trying to get your story told. It took me 36 years, but I did it. Your truth is out now. Your voice will finally be heard. I love you, big brother. I've missed you every day since 1987. And I'm not going to stop fighting until everyone knows what happened to you. To everyone watching this, thank you for listening. Thank you for being willing to hear a truth that the government has been hiding for decades. Share this video, talk about it, investigate it. Don't let them bury the Blue Ridge Tape again. Don't let my brother's death be for nothing. The creatures are real. They've been here all along, and the only way we can protect ourselves is to know the truth. Michael Gump, David Park, Jennifer Morrison, Kevin Walsh, Amy Thornton. Remember their names. They died trying to document something that powerful people wanted to keep hidden. They died so we could know the truth, honor their sacrifice, remember their courage, and never, ever forget what's really hiding in the mountains of Virginia. My name is Skylar Gump. I've been searching for answers for 36 years, and now I've finally found them. This is the story of the Blue Ridge Tape. This is the truth about what happened in October 1987. And this is my promise to my brother that his story will never be forgotten. The government can't hide it anymore. The creatures can't silence us. The truth is out. Now it's up to you to decide what to do with it. Be careful out there. Trust your instincts. And if you ever find yourself in the Blue Ridge Mountains, remember what happened to 5 film students who thought they were safe. They thought wrong. Don't make the same mistake. I've been Skylar Gump. This has been the true story of the Blue Ridge Tape, and now, after 36 years of darkness, the light has finally broken through. Tell everyone. Share the truth. Make sure they didn't die in vain. That's all I can do for Michael now. That's all any of us can do. Remember, learn, survive, and whatever you do, don't go into the mountains looking for proof. The proof found my brother, and it killed him. Don't let it find you too.